Hi, I'm Paul. For this video, I thought we would have a talk about desire, the root of all evil. How does desire work? So maybe we start off with a scenario, make a scenario to work off. Let's say you're a smoker. You've smoked for 10 years or however many years. And all of a sudden in your head you decide, I need a cigarette. Is that desire? I don't think that is desire. If I have a packet of cigarettes in my pocket and I say I wouldn't mind having a cigarette and then pull out a cigarette straight away, then there's not really a lot of time to desire a cigarette. Maybe perhaps it could be a little bit of desire, but I don't know if that's quite desire. We'll take it on a little bit further and see what happens. Let's say you are a smoker and you pull out a cigarette and say, I want to have a cigarette. And then I say to you, no, don't have a cigarette. You're not having a cigarette. Just stop it, put it away. What happens? What happens in you at that point? You see, perhaps at this point when I'm arguing, you're saying I want it, and I'm saying no, put it away, you're not having it. It seems as if something takes over you. It seems as if there's a rising energy inside of you, and you want to fight against me. This is probably why kids are naughty, when you tell them not to. You tell a child, don't do that, and they want to do it. But firstly, you have this idea, perhaps an inkling of desire. I want to have a cigarette, fulfill my needs. So then I say, no, put it away. You're not having a cigarette, bad for you. And then you start arguing against me. You see, now it seems that from this desire of wanting a cigarette, if we could call that desire, which if I'm saying no, then it would be desire, because it appears to be happening in time. It's not instant. So then you become overwhelmed. Why? Why does it seem like when you want something, I mean, this isn't everybody, please forgive me, but just as the story goes, why is it you want something? The more I say no, the more, do I say excitement? It seems inside there's some sort of push and pull maybe. You see, you start to argue against me, but yet with an excitement maybe. Is it perhaps because this desire in the first place is now gaining attention? So we could say maybe the desire comes from a center. There's me, the story of me who's a smoker. Smoking fulfills my needs. And the thought of having a cigarette fulfills my need, my center. So then, from the center, I'm just going to wave. So then, sorry, someone walking past. So then from center, when I argue and say no, this center is getting attention, giving it more stimulation, more food. See, if I don't say no, the cigarette itself doesn't give any strong desire. It doesn't give any elevating attention, let's say, to the ego, to the story, to the center. But only when I argue with you, this excitement appears. It's gaining attention. So this attention seems to fulfill the story of me. So in some ways you could say you want the argument, because it gives the ego, the center, some attention. Let's change it. Let's say you listen to a song. Let's say you listen to a song full of emotions. You know, the typical sort of mainstream sort of songs these days, full of emotions just to pull your strings. So you listen to a song and you get drawn by it. Takes you into emotion. This fulfills the center. You see, that's what emotions seem to do. They fulfill the center, or tear the center apart, let's say. So you listen to a song and it fulfills the center and gives you some sort of excitement, which is very similar to desire. Perhaps desire. Hang on. Perhaps desire leads to excitement. Yes. Yeah. So, fulfilling your story of the me, the center, being somewhere high at the top of it, full of energy, would be excitement. The desire to do something would be to lead to this excitement. Failure would take you away from the top of this center, the fulfillment of the center. So let's say you listen to a song and you really like it, and this triggers off your emotions, and then you say to me, "I've found this really good song, I want you to listen to it." And then I say, no, I don't feel that I want to be tempted by desire. So all of a sudden, when you feel hurt, what happened? You desired excitement, perhaps. You heard this song, you wanted to share it, you want someone else to join in with the excitement, and then it fulfills the energy maybe to this story of the me, the center. And then I tear it down by saying, no, I don't feel that I want to be tempted by this desire of the song. And then you feel hurt. Who's wounded? Well, the energy's been taken away from your center. So it seems to me that desire leads to, let's say, being fully charged in the center. If you say that maybe the fully charged would be the excitement would be when you're fulfilling the story of me, the center. What would be at the bottom? What happens when you're hurt? Where do you go? Where does the energy go? So it brings you down. This story of me seems not as energetic. Perhaps you go down even further and it becomes depression. Go down even further and it comes to the breakdown of the I, the center, the me. But can you see that there's desire? And let's say fear. I think fear and desire are probably the flip sides of the same coin. So desire would be towards the top of the justifying the story, fulfilling the energy of the center maybe, and then fear would be somewhere down at the bottom when there's not much energy. More depression. You notice this is all kind of, let's say, on one side. It's not the complete you. It's not the whole you. There's something missing. So you can play in this game of the center, of the ego, where you're up, down, going around in a merry-go-round and so on, and trying to justify it, and when you don't justify it, boredom kicks in and tells you need to find something to fill the center again. There's something else. There's something beyond that. So can we say that what is beyond the center would just be peace? I laugh there for a reason. Many of us haven't found it. Many of us so caught up in desire and excitement that we don't want to let it go. Why do we need to sit in this center? Why do we need to keep fulfilling? Why are we afraid to let it go? You see, I talk about this center as being, it's always trying to gain more, justify itself. Always trying to top up its energy. I remember hearing something a while ago about a cup with a hole in it. You fill the cup up and you're constantly filling it up because it's leaking out the hole at the bottom. So it needs this never-ending supply to fulfill the center. Which means that if you're forever chasing, forever hunting for more food to justify the me. And so it seems as if the center seems as if it's in control. Seems as if it's keeping control of your whole life and pointing you in the things that you want and you don't want, covering over stories, making excuses. So we think it's in control. But is it even there? This center. So we can say this center is the thought maker, the thinker, always thinking for me, always choosing the next thought. Only there isn't a thinker. There isn't a thought maker. It's just thought. Somehow we gain this appearance, this illusion that there's a thought maker which is making all the thoughts, which then leads off into desire to gain the next thought, to gain the next story, so that I could be fulfilled in this center, which doesn't even exist anyway, because the thinker, the thought maker, is the thought. So desire seems to always want to lead me into thought. You want a cigarette. Maybe that might give me just a little bit of energy. But then I say to you, no, you're not having a cigarette. And then all of a sudden your energy starts to rise up as you start to argue, fight against me, because now the ego's getting attention. Now, if the ego's getting attention, which isn't really there, the thought maker doesn't exist. But as long as it's getting attention off somebody, then it's giving it more justification that it actually does exist. So this is why we seek desire. We want excitement. Well, excitement is when the ego is fully seen, fully justified, fully believed. The fear is when you start to realize that it probably doesn't exist. So desire maybe perhaps is the thing we use to chase energy for the center, find more food for the center. So desire, how does desire work? I see something, then I think about, no, I see something. So this is sensory, sensations. So there's environment, sensations. Then thought. I think about this desired object in relation to me. Make a story of it. Make it about me. Make it I would love to have, and how I would be, and how I would look in with, or so on, that the desired object. And then from the thought, this thought gains multiple thoughts, making an image, making a story. It makes an image. This image strengthens the image of me. And when it's fully strengthened, gives me excitement. Because the image is seen, justified. So desire is coming from sensation, thought, image, desire. Desire gives me excitement. So we say desire is the root of all evil because it only goes in one direction. So how do you resist the temptation of desire? Meaning, how do you resist the separate self? How do you resist feeding into the separate self? Which is to resist the temptation of desire. Well, you stop it. When do you stop it? When? Don't go into it in the first place. See it. See it as it arrives and refuse the temptation. You see, I do this all the time. I meet people and people who I know, and I could see that they tried to get me excited. And instantly I could see it. I could feel the pull of them trying to get me excited, and I don't. I just don't. I can't be bothered. I'm sick of desire and excitement, and I just don't do it. I really do not do it. Someone says to me, "Hey, this is a brilliant song. I really want you to listen to it." No, don't. I don't do it. I just don't like being drawn into something, especially when it's kind of emotional, because that seems to be the food for the ego to me. It's something much more than emotions. So you feel the temptation of excitement or something pulling you to perhaps desire. You see it and you say no. You see yourself going towards excitement and you say no. You see your mind wandering off into thoughts that you know are going to spiral out of control, and you say no, don't want to do that. You see, I think this resisting the temptation of desire can only happen at the beginning, when it first arrives. You see, when you start to when the temptation starts to get too much, the temptation of desire, you can actually watch yourself go. Let's say before the desire, there seems to be a me, and the desire seems to lead into this separate me, the ego, the center. But for the moment, before resisting the temptation of desire, there is still a me. But as the temptation of desire starts taking a hold of me, the me disappears, and it seems I'm now taken by desire, taken by excitement. Now I can't pull back. Too late. You can watch it in this position. If you've gone this far and someone's tempted you into desire, or you've been tempted into something emotional or exciting or whatever, you're already taken. Now, I'm not sure you could pull yourself back, but you can watch. You can watch yourself. You can watch how you got pulled in. You can watch what it feels like. You can watch how icky it feels. But I'm not sure about pulling yourself back when you've gone too far. So the idea is do not fall for the temptation in the first place. Spot it. In other words, we're saying don't react. You know, if someone comes up to you and says, no, hang on, let me change that one. And you sat on a bench in a park. I've used this one before. And there's a dog barking in the distance. Can you still sit there with a dog barking and not particularly hear it? You see, that's not reacting. Or when the dog barks, you feel the need to say, that dog is doing my head in, driving me mad, that dog should be taken away, so on and so on. That is exactly what it's like being taken by the temptation of desire. It's exactly the same as an addiction. You've been smoking for ages and I say don't take a cigarette. How do you stop smoking? You don't smoke. So that's it. You resist the temptation of having another cigarette. I know I'll make it sound easy and it's not, but you just resist the temptation of having a cigarette. That's exactly the same as resisting the temptation of desire. I think the key to finding peace, the spiritual whatever rubbish, is to resist the temptation of desire, because resisting the temptation of desire instantly stops you from being taken into the separate self. You cannot. You have, hang on. You have to agree. You have to agree to, you have to surrender to the separate self. By surrendering, this is like saying I want to quit smoking and then actually having a cigarette. It's you who has to choose that. You can't say I didn't choose to have this next cigarette. You did. Perhaps you say I couldn't resist the temptation of having a cigarette. And this is exactly the same as going into the separate self. Many people can't resist the temptation of desire. Desire leads you into the separate self. And once you're in it, it's pretty hard to pull yourself out of it. So just don't fall in it in the first place. I know I'm really waffling on here and it doesn't sound that important. It is. If you want to get rid of a separate self, it's probably one of the most important things to do, but not easy. You see, many people say you have to find the I. Find the separate self and see it as not being real. And then it falls away. Well, that's fine. You see, the I, the separate self, is the center. But it isn't there in the first place. I agree. But what leads you to it? What leads you to the finding comfort in the center? Desire. I think it's always desire. Even if you're telling yourself something negative, a sad story or something bad, something happened to me as a child or so on, blah, 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 is still feeding into the center, still desire, even if it doesn't sound like it. Even if that sounds like you're just torturing yourself, it is still desire. And desire leads you straight into the center. Anyway, I think I'm done with waffling on, so thank you very much for listening.